Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Heir of the Uzumaki in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 6, A Shinobi's Will. Naruto watched as Kakashi drew closer and closer to Haku with the lightning jutsu in his hand. Kakashi stretched the hand out towards Haku as though to puncture her heart, and Naruto could only watch as he drew ever closer to doing so. What can I do? He asked himself as he stared at his sensei. He is my sensei, and if I attack him then I can be punished severely, but Haku is my first real friend, and if I let her die. He said to himself. Kami, you just love fucking with me, eh? Naruto said as he tore at his hair in anger. Kakashi thrusted his arm at a now standing Haku. No. Haku screamed. Chapter 6, A Shinobi's Will. Naruto's eyes widened in horror and time seemed to slow down dramatically. Kakashi, who had the lightning jutsu in hand, had drew his arm back and lunged at Haku. Chidori. Haku's eyes widened and she screamed, but before the attack could hit her, Zabuza appeared out of nowhere and delivered a vicious kick to Kakashi's face and sent him flying. The silver-haired Jounin flew backwards and crashed heavily into the side of the bridge and slowly slumped to the ground. Naruto winced as he knew that an attack like that would hurt just about anyone. His eyes slowly wandered over to Zabuza and Haku, and he found that Haku was already on her feet and Zabuza was leaning heavily on her shoulder. Blood soaked through the tight sleeveless shirt he was wearing, and Naruto could see where Kakashi's blade had pierced his heart. Naruto ran towards the two but stopped and looked over his shoulder and saw that Sakura was too busy with Sasuke to notice him. He continued to run over to the two and stopped short as the panting Zabuza chuckled. "Hey, are you okay?" Naruto asked as he eyed the wound in fear. "Ha, kid, you have a lot to learn," Zabuza said and coughed wildly. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked, and Zabuza chuckled lightly again. "I don't have much time to talk right now since your bastard sensei wounded me like this, but I'll tell you what. Uzumaki hearts are located in the right side of their chests, not the normal spot," Zabuza said, and he and Haku were surrounded by a spiraling ice vortex. "Wait, what?" Naruto asked as he scratched his head. "We'll be in touch soon," Zabuza muttered, and he and Haku disappeared in an ice shunshin. Naruto stared at the spot they stood as soft flakes of ice floated down to the ground. Just as the first of them touched down, he heard a mass number of footsteps approaching the bridge, and he turned towards the sound. Naruto's face dropped in horror when he saw the sight before him. Geto had appeared on the bridge, and behind him stood hundreds of men, and there was only 5 of them to face the army. That wasn't including the fact that Kakashi was knocked out, Sakura was a wimp, Sasuke was also unconscious, and Tajuna was an old man that would break his hip if he tried to fight. Naruto growled in anger as he cursed the heavens. Did you hear something?" Kami asked the man in front of him. "Nope, just deal the cards, I'm feeling lucky," Hades said as he went all in. The two entities were playing poker. Naruto took several steps forward and stood by Tajuna as the man stared at the army in fear. Naruto saw that the man was shaking, and the blonde knew he couldn't do anything to really help at the moment. Naruto slowly reached into his pocket and drew out 3 kunai. He handed one to Tajuna, who took it and held it awkwardly in front of him. Naruto held one kunai straight up in his right hand and the other straight down in his left. He settled into a fighting stance and Geto eyed him carefully. Naruto waited for the first move to be made, and he waited for a long time too. The two forces, or the force and the teen and man, stared at each other for what seemed like forever. Naruto felt a sweat drop slowly make its way down his face and dropped off his chin to the ground. As soon as it touched, he quickly crossed his hands and shouted, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." He poured as much chakra as he could into the effort, and suddenly about 100 clones appeared behind them in perfect formation, all holding kunai like Naruto was. Naruto watched as several of the men in front of him shifted on their feet uneasily. He turned his attention back towards Geto and smirked. "So, are we going to do this?" the blonde asked, and the man sneered at him. "If you want a job done, then I guess you gotta do it yourself," Geto said and pointed at a large section of the army. "Squad A, attack, kill them all," Geto said, and Naruto watched as about 50 men ran at him. Naruto let out a battle cry, and he and all of his clones rushed out to meet the oncoming forces. There was a lot of metal ringing noises, and Geto watched as orange blurs fought his men. A lot of Naruto's clones were dispelled right away, but he had managed to actually hold on to the upper hand for a long time. After 5 minutes of fighting, the two forces broke apart and Naruto took count of his clones. 34 were left, not including himself, while Gato's squad had been reduced to numbers of a mere and wimpy 20. Naruto swore at the expense of chakra, and he knew he couldn't afford to waste any more. He had poured a lot into making those last clones and he hadn't gotten a proper rest either, so he was still tired. Naruto flipped back and landed by Tajuna and landed on his knee, panting heavily. He turned and looked to see that his worthless team was still immobile. Well, Sakura had finally awoken Sasuke, but the boy wasn't moving very fast. Naruto shook his head and settled into a basic taijutsu stance, since that was all he knew. His clones followed his lead and they all glared at Gato and his gang. Naruto knew that he wouldn't be able to last much longer and he prayed for one miracle at least. Naruto let out a low growl as Gato began to laugh wildly. I hired ninja for this task and I still am doing it with my men that I can have do it for free. Gato bellowed and Naruto snarled at him. You're a sick twisted bastard, and if I get my hands on you I swear. Naruto let the threat hang and he continued to glare at Gato. Then let's go. Defeat my men and fight me. The short little man yelled and Naruto let out a battle cry and took a step forward until he heard a buzzing sound. Ah! Gato screamed in agony as a small bolt buried itself in his shoulder. Naruto stopped as he ran and looked to see where the arrow had come from, and the sight he saw made him smile happily. Inari was standing about 30 feet from the army on the bridge, and he had his right hand loosely hanging at his side while he held a crossbow in the other. He smirked at the men before him, but Naruto sighed when he saw the boy's knees trembling. He's about to piss his pants, Naruto thought. Kill that kid. Gato screamed in fury as he tried to pull the bolt out of his back. Gato's men cheered and began to run at Inari, who dropped the crossbow in horror, but they all stopped when they heard a inhuman snarl come from Naruto. Slowly they all turned and found Naruto standing with his arms hanging at his sides with his head down. Tajuna had taken a few steps back in fear of the blonde boy. Naruto shook violently and slowly he raised his head and made eye contact with the small army. His canines had grown out much longer and hung over his bottom lip, while his hair had grown a bit longer and seemed spikier and rough around the edges. The sight that scared them most of all, though, was Naruto's red eyes. The boy was glaring at the army in anger as he felt power flood through his veins. He snarled again and all of his clones dispersed in a massive poof, covering his whole side of the bridge in a cloud. Gato tried grabbing at the bolt again and stared at the cloud in horror. What is happening? He asked himself as a sudden wave of chakra unleashed itself and washed across the bridge, bringing the weaker men in his group to their knees. What power is this? He muttered. Ah! He heard a sudden scream and orange blurs began to shoot out of the smoke. Gato watched as hundreds of Naruto clones descended from the sky on his army. The Naruto clones landed right in front of them and growled evilly before attacking. They dashed in crippling men left and right, evading attacks, and behaving more like an animal than human. Gato whimpered and scooted away from the turmoil towards the white cloud. As he scooted back, he soon ran into a pair of legs. He slowly turned to see Tajuna glaring at him wickedly, and he held out his hand as a Naruto clone hung into a wooden club. Gato gulped as Tajuna grabbed the club and swung it wickedly at the man's chest. Wham! Gato was sent rolling as the club destroyed several of his ribs. Gato slowly sat up coughing, and Tajuna walked over to him and grabbed him by the neck and held him at eye level. You bastard, you ordered your men to kill my grandchild. Tajuna yelled as he glared at Gato, whose sneer was replaced by a look of horror. Tajuna shook his head and raised the club for the finishing blow, but suddenly changed his mind. He turned to look at the real Naruto, who was staring at him dully. Take care of the trash boy, Tajuna said, and threw Gato at the blonde's feet. Gladly, Naruto said in a feral voice, and grabbed Gato by the shirt and yanked him up to eye level. This is going to hurt, he said, and threw Gato up into the air. The man only flew up about 10 feet, but two Naruto clones ran at him, and before he could land, both clones, in perfect sync, spun in a circle to increase their momentum and hit Gato with a double rocket kick that sent him flying into the air. Naruto looked at Tajuna, who nodded his head. Naruto grinned darkly, and suddenly Narutos were leaping off each other's backs, climbing higher and higher into the air. Soon a clone jumped up above Gato and brought his foot down on the man's gut, sending him hurtling towards earth, actually towards a cement bridge. The man slammed into the bridge and Tajuna winced from the sound. When the dust settled, Geto was laying in a small crater but was still alive surprisingly. Only Naruto wasn't done yet. Tajuna saw a shadow pass over his head and he looked up to see the real Naruto coming from the sky at insane speeds. His blood-red eyes were frightening with his evil snarl. His fist was brought back behind his head and before Geto could blink it was in his gut. Boom! Tajuna was knocked on his ass as wind and dust blew wildly, obscuring the vision of many. When it settled, Tajuna's jaw dropped in shock. Naruto stood panting over a large hole that went through the entire bridge. Tajuna crawled over to the hole just in time to see the small whirlpool that had showed where Geto was sent into the water at high speeds disappear. Tajuna started with shock and finally sighed with relief. Naruto swayed a little bit and his features returned to normal and all of his clones disappeared. "You're lucky, kid," Naruto heard as he crashed to his knees with a massive headache. "Holy shit," Naruto heard Sasuke mutter as he saw the result of the battle. Naruto's clones had done a rather good job with taking out many of the army because now only about 35 stood tall, but they were panting. Naruto slowly stood to his feet with his hand on his head and turned to his teammate. "Go and finish up, fag," he said as he pushed past the Uchiha. "You attacked me in our battle, you loser," Sasuke snarled suddenly and Naruto shook his head. "That was Haku, your Kekkai Genkai isn't all-seeing, and even you have blind spots," Naruto muttered and Sasuke growled but had to accept the lie. Naruto finally stopped in front of Tajuna and gave him a grin. "Your problems are now gone." Naruto slowly turned back towards the army and saw that many of them still planned on fighting. "Crap, I have almost no chakra left," he thought, and another wave of pain washed over his head. "Nii-san!" Inari yelled as the army slowly advanced on the ninja and his grandfather. All of a sudden a lone rock whizzed through the air and struck a man in the head, causing him to fall to the ground complaining about it. Naruto's gaze slowly drifted from the army to a larger group that was now behind Inari. Naruto sighed in relief at the sight he saw and he heard Tajuna give a sigh of joy also. Naruto turned and looked at the man who was grinning with tears flowing down his face. "Looks like your village has regained its courage," Naruto said and heard the villagers began to chant. The small army of 35 were unnerved at the appearance of the village. There was at least 150 people there and they were all armed and ready to use their weapons. The army made a split-second decision and ran towards a ladder on the bridge and jumped into the water and swam viciously for the shore where they took off running in their own respective directions. Naruto sighed in relief and took a few staggering steps forward, but Tajuna caught him and slung his arm around his shoulder. "Easy now," the old man exclaimed and helped Naruto slowly limp over to the villagers who were all clapping for him. "Why are you clapping for that loser? I am the one who eliminated the threat," Sasuke shouted as he ran towards the villagers. "Stop it!" he yelled as the villagers cheered for Naruto. "Did you hear me? I said dash." That was as far as he got when all of a sudden Tsunami's hand slapped him in the face and he stared at her in shock. "You are an arrogant fool," she said in a voice that said don't argue back. "All you have done since you have been here is jab and poke at Naruto along with your team. You are no hero," she said flatly and walked away from the Uchiha, leaving him speechless. About time, Naruto thought as the crowd swept him away, leaving Sasuke and Sakura to arose their sensei. "Nii-san, please don't leave." Two voices chorused and Naruto sighed heavily as he bent down to look the two 8-year-olds in the eyes. "You guys will be fine, Inari. You're on the path to be a ninja and need to keep training until you're 10 so that you can join the academy in Konoha. Tis why Tsunami and Tajuna agreed to take you in to give you a home, so make the best of it and enjoy having a new brother," Naruto said, and the two sighed and nodded. "Fine, Nii-san," Inari muttered. "If you say so." "Tis why finished," and Naruto laughed as he shouldered his pack and dug into his pockets. "Here, Inari, this is for you, use it wisely," Naruto said and handed Inari a pouch that Naruto always carried around in case of emergencies, but he had plenty more back at his home. In the pouch were several kunao and shuriken. "Tis why I already have given you all I can, so all I can do now is give you this," Naruto said and reached into his bag and pulled out a scroll. "It's a taijutsu scroll. It has some basic forms that I have learned also, so if you want you can become a ninja too, and Inari can show you the basics, I guess." Naruto finished and Tsuai hugged him tightly. "Thank you Nii-san," she said, and Naruto chuckled and saw Inari eyeing the scroll. "Yes Inari, you can use it too, but I had one other thing for you." Naruto muttered and slowly pulled out a green scroll. It had some basic earth jutsu on here as well as some exercises to teach you to use jutsu. "Keep practicing it and you'll be a great shinobi in no time," Naruto said, and took a couple steps back and waved at the four people smiling at him. "See you guys later," Naruto yelled, and Tsunami winked at him. "You have enough supplies to last for about a month and my recipe to make them," she yelled, and Naruto laughed. He and his team walked across the bridge and they ignored him like they usually did. Naruto looked back one last time at his new family in Wave Country. "So Tajuna, what are we going to name the bridge?" a man asked, and Tajuna chuckled. "I thought about the Great Naruto Bridge, but that doesn't explain what he has done for this town," Tajuna said, and closed his eyes. "The name will be A Hero's Path, aka Naruto's Journey." With that the town cheered. 2 days later. "So mission report," the Sandaime said, and Kakashi nodded his head and stared to explain the mission from front to beginning, and Naruto knew that trouble was about to be dealt. "Well, we left the village and soon encountered Grass Ninja. Sasuke and Sakura engaged in fighting, and during their fights Naruto tried showing off and jumped in, almost killing them in the process. Then we were attacked by Zabuza of the Mist, and again Naruto disobeyed orders and attacked Sasuke after he saved our lives. When we got to the town, Naruto was punished by carrying our bags and he became rather angry, and the next day Sasuke politely asked for training from him and he attacked the Uchiha. Then Naruto began to spy on Sasuke as he trained hard to learn a special technique to make up for the fact that he didn't Kage Bunshin, and Naruto stole it and then mocked Sasuke with it. Then when Sasuke politely asked for training with Kage Bunshin again, Naruto laughed in his face. Also Naruto began to teach Inari, Tajuna's grandson, how to be a ninja after I told him not to. Then when we fought Zabuza and his partner on the bridge, Naruto didn't show up to aid us, and when he did he betrayed his team and attacked Sasuke. He then proceeded to converse with Zabuza, and that was when I attacked. Then Naruto tried to fight off an army by himself to seem cool without consulting his team first." Kakashi finished, and Naruto was twitching with anger. "I see," the Sandaime said, and looked at Naruto. "Would you like to tell your story?" he asked, already knowing that Kakashi had lied between his teeth. "Yeah, okay. First, when the Grass Ninja attacked, I only interfered when Sakura and Sasuke were about to be killed. Then I left to help against Zabuza because my team needed me. That is why we have teams, right? And besides, I left a clone with Tajuna. Then as punishment I had to carry the bags all the way to his house, and then Sasuke threatened me when I said he didn't deserve to learn the Kage Bunshin. I attacked in self-defense, and then after that Sasuke assaulted Inari and I told him to apologize and he said no, so I said that he wasn't going to learn the Kage Bunshin ever. Then Kakashi tried to force me to do it and then banned me from doing the tree walking exercise with them. I ended up learning all by myself, and then I told Sasuke that if he did better at it than me I would teach him Kage Bunshin, and if I did better he had to catch the cat 25 times without chakra. I won and they got mad, so I went back to training Inari. Kakashi never said that I couldn't train the boy at all. Then my team went to the bridge and left me behind where I defended Inari and his mother and then went to aid them on the bridge. Then Sasuke was knocked out by Haku, not me. Also I wasn't conversing with Zabuza, I had him submitting to me because I told him about how Gato was using him. Then when the small army came I found that Kakashi was knocked out, Sasuke was out and Sakura was fawning over him. How was I supposed to consult them when they were all beaten senseless?" Naruto said, finishing his explanation. Kakashi, is this true?" the Sandaime asked, and the silver-haired Jounin chuckled and scratched the back of his head. "Well, some parts of it may be dash," he started. Case closed. Team 7 excluding Naruto, you are to be put on D-rank mission duty until further notice. You have to complete at least 200 missions in the next month or else. If you don't, Kakashi, then you will not be allowed to enter the Chunin exams, which are in 6 months if you remember correctly. Hiruzen said, holding back anger. But you can't do that," Kakashi exclaimed, and Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. "Oh really? Uchiha, you have to catch the cat 50 times without chakra now. Want to keep going, Kakashi?" the Sandaime asked. "What did Sasuke have to do with this?" Sakura demanded. Hara no Sakura, clean the whole river twice a week for 2 months. The Hokage said, and Team 7 stared at him in anger and shock. What about Paoji-san? Naruto asked, and the Hokage looked right at Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura before answering. Well, since it seems like you did mostly all of the work, Naruto, you receive all of the pay. Enjoy your time off. Dismissed. The Hokage said, and Team 7 marched out of the room. I hope you're happy, Naruto. Kakashi muttered. 25 more cat captures for Sasuke. The Hokage yelled, and Naruto walked away laughing. Naruto walked along the streets of Konoha, ignoring glares that came from fellow citizens. He had been gone for 3 weeks now. His first stop was the furniture store. He wanted to buy some more stuff for his home/cave. Naruto walked in with his mission pay in hand and immediately found what he had wanted. A new couch and desk for studying scrolls. He also got a bookshelf, along with a new bed. Naruto bought all of the things to go with it, and when he was done buying, he had used all of his mission's money up and was left with none at all. He chuckled softly as the owner of the store asked him how he was going to move all of the stuff. By myself, of course. Naruto said, and formed a hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto clones filled the street as they all picked up furniture and began to march away from the store with all of the furniture in hand. Naruto was going to the cave he now used to transport his furniture into his cave. It was near the base of the Hokage monument, and from the entrance it was a short walk to his main cave. It took him about half an hour to get to the entrance, but when he did, he was happy. It was dark out and he sensed no one's presence. It was a known fact that he lived in the underground area, but no one could ever find where. Naruto walked into the cave and marched towards his home. He arrived an hour later due to the fact that getting 100 clones to fit in a tightly packed area was rather hard. Right now he was standing in his home that he had remodeled yet again. Now the cave looked even nicer than it had 5 years ago. He now had rooms better distinguished and easier to find. He had narrowed his home down to one cave that branched off to 4 other caves. In the main cave was where he kept stuff like an extra couch and just a lounging room. Then leading down one tunnel was a cave that he had built for a study. He had 3 bookshelves that were overflowing with books and scrolls. Naruto had the clones with his bookshelf bring it there and start reorganizing the shelves so they were neater. Another tunnel led off to his bathing area. In one room was his hot spring he had found when he first started visiting here. Then from the hot springs another tunnel led to the wide open pit that he loved. Another tunnel in the hot springs led to a cave that was about 20 feet in diameter and held a small natural spring. It was 10 feet deep and Naruto could bath in it and drink from it since it was constantly flowing out into Konoha's water system. The third tunnel led to his training room. It was the largest of all the caves, reaching a diameter of over 200 feet. Naruto had been shocked that such a large cave could be found under Konoha, but either way he had quickly organized the cave to fit his needs. He had built a weapons room in the training area and had created wooden targets on the walls. He had also stolen wooden dummies a few years back and had been practicing on them. In the fourth and final room was his bedroom, where the rest of the stuff went pretty much. Naruto sighed heavily as he cracked his knuckles and stripped his clothing off in his room. He grabbed one of his towels and walked to his hot springs and got into the rock tub and soaked, enjoying the natural heat. As Naruto sat there pondering his thoughts and wondering about what had happened in Wave Country, the most random thing happened to him. Naruto was sitting and just enjoying his warm bath when suddenly a large water explosion drenched him and blinded him for a second. He sputtered and coughed for a little bit, and when he cleared his eyes he saw someone sitting on the opposite side of the rock tub. "Told you we would be in touch soon," Zabuza said, and Haku giggled wildly at Naruto's expression. Chapter 7, The Truth. "You know, privacy would be rather nice," Naruto yelled as he stormed from his room. Behind him sat a confused Haku and a amused Zabuza. "We just wanna talk, boy," Zabuza said, and Naruto rounded on his with cold blue eyes. "Then, let me change," Naruto roared as he walked into his main cave. "Oh boy," Zabuza muttered, and Haku laughed. Naruto cursed as he quickly changed into the clothes he had been carrying around in his hand. After he was finally able to change in a somewhat peaceful realm, he plopped down onto a couch just as a swirl of water left aboard Zabuza sitting on one end of the couch and a swirl of ice left Haku sitting on the other side. Naruto was left sitting in the middle of the two as they stared straight ahead. You know, you could just walk. Naruto said in a dark voice. Yeah, but I am just showing off for you. Zabuza said with a chuckle. How did you find out where I lived? Naruto asked, getting straight to the point. Well, that was simple. I now know that you're a Jinhuriki because I saw your little display on the bridge. Zabuza began. Wait, you saw that but didn't help. I thought you were retreating to a safe location. Naruto said angrily. Well, we did, and then we observed. Zabuza said and continued. Now then, because I already knew that you were from Konoha, I just merely looked for a lonely outcast, and lo and behold I found you in a cave, since Haku kinda tracked your chakra. Zabuza said, chuckling lightly as he scratched the back of his head. That it? Naruto asked, and Zabuza shook his head, suddenly getting serious. No, actually I came to tell you what I couldn't on the bridge. Zabuza said, and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah, you were about to tell me about my mom. Naruto exclaimed, sitting up. Yes, I was. Now sit the hell down and shut it. Zabuza said, and Naruto complied, eager to hear what the man had to say. Okay, like I was saying on the bridge. Your mom, she was my sister. Zabuza said, and Naruto stared at Zabuza wide-eyed. What? The blonde shouted, and Zabuza shushed him. Yeah, you heard me, she was my sister. Zabuza said, and Naruto's socked face slowly slid away when he realized a crucial fact. I have family. He said with tears in his eyes. Yeah, and this family expects you to learn the ways of your clan. Zabuza said, standing to his feet. Wait, what? Naruto asked, shocked. You heard me, brat, I am going to train you starting tomorrow. Zabuza said, and Naruto grinned. So I am from a clan, eh? Naruto asked, and Zabuza nodded. The Uzumaki clan, one of the most powerful clan in Whirlpool. You deserve to learn what you should rightfully know. Zabuza said, and Naruto jumped in excitement. So we are going to start training here? Naruto asked, and Zabuza shook his head. No, we are going to Whirlpool country to train. Naruto stared at him in shock for a little bit. Why did he have to travel all the way to Whirlpool just to train? Why? Was all he asked. Well, first, all the stuff you are going to learn is there. Second, how the hell am I going to train you here? I am a missing nin for Kami's sake. Zabuza roared, and Naruto nodded. Oh yeah, but wait. I can't just leave my village. Naruto exclaimed. So you're going to go and train for the Chunin exams? The Hokage said, eyeing Naruto carefully. Yeah. Naruto muttered, and the Hokage nodded. Where are you going to train? Sarutobi asked curiously, and Naruto looked nervous. Whirlpool country. Naruto muttered after a while, and the Hokage's eyebrows raised in shock. What do you mean? That country is impossible to enter. Sarutobi exclaimed, and Naruto shook his head. I have a teacher who is going to teach me, don't worry Ji-san, I will be fine. Naruto said, and the Hokage sat and thought for a while. Fine, but first you need to know. In order to enter the Chunin exams you need to have a team, so Team 7 is going to enter despite my punishment. The council is very meddling. The Hokage said, and Naruto nodded. That's fine, when I am done with my training I will be super strong, just you watch. Naruto said, giving the man a thumbs up. Very well Naruto, you have 6 months before you have to return. The Hokage said, and Naruto nodded. 6 months to get stronger and learn my clan's ways. Naruto thought to himself. Chapter 8, Chunin exam. 6 months later. Sasuke and Sakura were walking down an alley hand in hand. The two had been dating for 5 months now, and both were happy. Sakura filled the void in Sasuke's life, and without Naruto getting in their way they were very happy. They had completed all of the missions they had to, and they were now on their way to go and eat for a date. As they walked and talked they saw up ahead of them a scene. 3 ninja were harassing 3 kids, and Sasuke rolled his eyes. Of course someone was going to bother them as they tried to go and eat. Annoying jerks. Sakura muttered as one of the ninja pushed the boy that she recognized as Kano Amaru to the ground. Guess we should go and help. Sasuke muttered and began to walk forward. Haha, look at this twerp. Kankuro chuckled as he picked Kano Amaru up by the back of his shirt and held the boy in front of him. "You got my shoe dirty, now lick it off," the sand ninja said to Kano Amaru. "Go eat poop and die." Kano Amaru yelled and Kankuro laughed. "You should learn to respect your elders, guess I should teach you some manners," Kankuro said and cocked his fist back. He let it fly and right before it made contact with Kano Amaru's face the boy was replaced by a log. Kankuro growled as he shook his hand and threw the log to the side. He looked ahead of him to see Sasuke and Sakura standing with Kano Amaru sitting on the ground in front of them. The boys' teammates were standing against the gate in shock, watching the events unfold. "You should learn to not disturb the peace," Sasuke muttered as his Sharingan spun wildly in both eyes. "Who the hell are you?" Kankuro muttered. "Uchiha Sasuke. Heir no Sakura." The two Konoha ninja stared at the three sand ninja in a battle of looks. Sasuke looked upon the three ninja and took in their details. One was shorter than the other two and had red hair. On his forehead he had a tattoo of some sort and he carried a gourd on his back. Sasuke then looked at the blonde girl and rolled his eyes. She had a giant fan attached to her back and she wore a black skirt that came just a little bit above her knee. Over it she wore a black tight t-shirt with the symbol of love on it. Her blonde hair hung behind her and came just below her shoulders. Sasuke looked over Kankuro and wasn't impressed. The boy wore a pair of black pants with a black collared shirt. It hung open to reveal a white t-shirt underneath. On his back he carried two large scrolls side by side. Sasuke rolled his eyes before speaking again. "So are you losers going to introduce yourselves?" he said sarcastically. "Humph, I'm Kankuro, this is Gaara, and she is to marry," Kankuro said and pointed at Kano Amaru. "And that brat is going to lick my shoe now." Kankuro taking a step forward. Sasuke reacted quickly and threw a kunai with lightning speed at Kankuro who faltered. Sasuke then threw a shuriken which was stopped suddenly by Gaara who had now stepped into the light so Sasuke could see him better. He wore a pair of black short with a red shirt over it. The shirt was low-cut and Sasuke could see black metallic mesh underneath it. Sakura gasped when she saw sand holding the shuriken inches away from Kankuro's grinning face. The sand suddenly whipped in a circle and threw the shuriken back at the unprepared Sasuke. Swish! The shuriken was suddenly pinned to the ground by a kunai that had appeared from nowhere. Everyone jumped at the appearance of the weapon and looked up into a tree that held the person who had thrown it. "I would advise you to think wisely before attacking another Konoha ninja," the figure said as he stepped out of the shadows and Sasuke and Sakura gasped. "Sensei!" Sakura exclaimed and Sasuke smirked. "I suggest you Suna ninja leave now before you get hurt," Kakashi said releasing a wave of killing intent. It was suddenly washed away by a larger amount of killing intent and Kakashi looked straight at Gaara who was eyeing him seriously. "If you threaten me or my siblings I'll have to kill you," the redhead said. Kakashi shook his head and glared at the three Suna ninja. Team 7 stood their ground and Kankuro shrugged. "Let's go you guys, we don't have time to waste on these losers, the exam starts in an hour," he said and the three turned and walked away from the ninja. Sasuke grunted and Sakura let out a sigh of relief. Kakashi turned slowly to his team and smiled. "We should get going, it's time for the exams almost and you guys can't be late," he said and disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves. "So don't give us a lift at all," Sasuke muttered and began walking leaving the three frightened children to cower against the gate. Sasuke and Sakura walked into the building that the exam was in and found it packed already. Ninjas from many different countries were there and they were all conversing among their own teams. Sasuke and Sakura immediately located the area that the Konoha rookies were all standing and walked over to them. "What's up Sasuke?" Kiba said and Sasuke nodded. "Sakura?" Ino said darkly. Oh Ino hey." Sakura said and ticked Ino off. "So we're all here then?" Sasuke said and Kiba shook his head. "We're missing one person." The Inuzuka said and Sasuke nodded remembering there was one more genin that should be with them. "Yeah but he has been gone for 6 months now," Sakura said and the 11 Konoha ninjas laughed. They became silent as they felt the glares of countless enemies on their back. Sasuke eyed the competition carefully and sighed after he found several ninja who looked like they could pose a threat. He reached over and pulled Sakura next to him as he sat down on the bench behind them, and he stroked her hair as she rested. The two sat there in silence until finally the official walked into the room, and Kiba couldn't help but make a gagging noise when he saw the man's scars. "Listen up, maggots," he yelled. "My name's Genma and your asses are mine for the first exam." "Oh yeah," Sasuke muttered, and Genma rounded on him. "What was that?" he asked darkly. "Nothing," Sasuke muttered. "Didn't think so," the Jounin said and pointed towards the room they were supposed to go to. "Get your sorry asses in there and do not sit by your teammates." The genin marched into the room and sat down and were careful not to sit by their teammates. Sasuke sat in the middle of the room while Sakura sat in the very front. Sasuke and Sakura wondered how long they would get away with the fact that they didn't have a third teammate. They sat stock still as stared at Genma, who was eyeing them carefully. Many genin flinched under his look as it passed over them. Suddenly it came to rest on someone in the back of the room, and Genma gave a wicked smirk. "Oh, so you think you're cool, huh?" he said, and almost everyone in the room turned to see a genin in the back of the room with his feet up on his desk. He had a black heavy cloak on over his body so Sasuke couldn't see any of his features. "Yeah, I guess I do. So are we going to start this test soon?" the person said, and Sasuke saw many Jounin and Chiryunin in the room smirk at the genin's boldness. He pretty cocky, but I feel as though you're going to be the first one to go," Genma said and looked at the whole class. "There are 10 questions on the test. For every question you get wrong you lose a point. Your score is combined with your team's score and it is a total out of 30. If your team misses more than 10 then you are all kicked out of the exam. The last question will be asked by me," Genma said, and the genin all fidgeted nervously. "Anyone caught cheating will get docked 2 points, and if you are caught 3 times you get kicked out, along with the rest of your team. You start, now," the man yelled, and suddenly papers appeared in front of every genin in the room. Sasuke looked over the questions and sighed. They were impossible, and he rubbed his eyes in thought as he thought about what Genma had said. "No cheating, wait, he said if you get caught 3 times, he never said we would get kicked out the first time." Sasuke thought and saw that Sakura was writing furiously. Of course his girlfriend knew the answers, she was the smartest genin almost. Sasuke quietly activated his Sharingan and copied her hand movements, and soon he had every answer written down. As he was writing he heard many people busted cheating and they all got docked. He saw several teams kicked out of the exam and they slowly walked out with gloomy looks. Sasuke laid his head down so no one could cheat off him and he fell asleep. Genma's voice awoke him suddenly and he sat up and found that 1/4 of the room's occupants had been kicked out by now. "Okay you little shits, time for the 10 question. First though you have a choice. You can choose to answer the question, but if you get it wrong then you will be kicked out of the exam along with your whole team and none of you can ever take the exam again. You could also choose to walk out of the exam now and try again next year," Genma said and waited. Slowly several genin stood and their teams groaned as they walked out of the room. Soon about half of the room was empty and Sasuke and Sakura were still there. Genma looked around and chuckled. "Are you guys sure? I mean if you get it wrong then dash. Just ask the damn question." Sasuke heard the person who was in the back yell. Sasuke and half the class turned and found the person in the same position they were in at the beginning of the exam. "Hey, you didn't move an inch in the whole exam," Genma said angrily. "Damn right I didn't. This is the only question that really matters, none of that bullshit on the test, so just ask the question." The person yelled and Genma smirked. "Fine, anyone else wanna leave?" he asked, and no one stood. "Well, it seems that you all pass." "Wait, what?" someone exclaimed, and Genma chuckled. "In the ninja world you will have to make tough choices and they may not always be the right ones. This test was designed to test your courage," Genma said, and before he could continue the person in the black cloak stood and walked from the room. "Hey, where the hell are you going?" Genma shouted, and the person raised a hand. "I don't wanna listen to your boring lecture anymore," the person said and began to walk away again. "Not so fast, punk," a sudden shout said as someone crashed through the door and flew past the person, grabbing their cloak as they went past. "You have to stick around to find out where the next exam is," the woman said as she rolled to a stop and threw her hands up, ending her routine. She had her head back for more oomph, but when she looked at the genin she saw that a lot of them were staring at the person who she had flown past in shock. She looked over and the sight surprised her as well. "Loser," Sasuke said, standing to his feet suddenly. Naruto stood in front of everyone in the room with a sad frown on his face. "Naruto?" Kiba exclaimed. Naruto's appearance had really changed in the last 6 months. He now had on a pair of black pants with random blue slashes on them. He had on a black t-shirt and over that was a blue short-sleeved cloak that reached a little bit past his knees. Along the bottom of it were waves and on the back of the cloak was a crescent moon and in the small opening of the moon was a spiral. The moon was a light blue while the spiral was red. On his back was a slender scroll and a sword, both crossed to make an X. The sheath of the sword was completely black and the hilt was a pattern of black with blue diamonds along both sides of it. Naruto's hetai was tied to a belt loop on his pants and hung in front of his right pocket. His hair hung loosely in front of his face and it was much longer. It now covered his eyes almost and everyone could see the tattoo on his right arm. The tattoo was really cool, as some people would explain. It showed the same symbol that was on Naruto's cloak, only this one seemed to shimmer when Naruto moved. "Damn, you blew my cover, you crazy bitch," he muttered, and in that moment Naruto got his very own fan club. "Whoa," Hinata muttered at Naruto's new appearance. "He is," Tamari said, raising an eyebrow. "Really hot," Ino said beneath her breath. "You're the little brat that was annoying me," Genma said with a look of shock across his face. "No, it was the wall," Naruto said as he slowly walked back to his seat, ignoring all of the looks he got on the way there. He plopped down into his seat and watched Anko in anger. Ino and Tamari acted quickly and were seated next to him, trying to talk to him. "Hey Naruto, you know you look really cool," Ino said sweetly. "Piggy, say what?" Naruto said beneath his breath, and Ino sighed. Sasuke was glaring at Naruto with as much hatred as he could muster. The boy had simply stolen all of the attention in the room as though he wasn't trying. "That loser," he thought as he slowly turned away from Naruto and his 2 new little stalkers. "Well," Anko said as she tried to figure out what had just happened. "Genma, it seems you have a lot of genin left in here, but no matter," Anko said and looked right at Sasuke. "I'll cut that number in half." She laughed maniacally. "You're crazy," Kiba said in a frightened tone, and Anko looked at him with a grin. "I know, and I'm proud. Now everyone meet me at the Forest of Death, now." She bellowed and jumped out of the window and disappeared from view. "Fuck my luck," Naruto said as he pushed Tamari and Ino away from him. "I don't like stalkers." With that, Naruto walked from the room and everyone slowly followed him. "So it seems that you're all here, I see," Anko said, and the group of genin all nodded. "Well then, everyone get with their teams and get your asses in line, now," she bellowed, and everyone complied. Soon there were 2 lines of genin and they all stood in front of Anko, who had lain 22 scrolls in front of her. 11 on one side and 11 on the other. She looked up again. "Alright maggots, your team needs to take one of these scrolls and go to your assigned gate number. The objective is to get a heaven scroll if you have a earth scroll and a earth scroll if you have a heaven scroll, got it? When you get your scrolls, go to the tower over there," she said and pointed into the distance at a tower that no one saw. "You guys have 3 days, good luck." Slowly every team got their scrolls, and when Team 7 was about to pick their own up, Anko held it back and chuckled. "Hope you don't get killed, Uzumaki," she said, and threw him a heaven scroll which he caught in his hand and walked off towards their gate number. Soon they arrived at gate 44 and slowly they walked in, being careful to watch their backs. Sasuke glared at Naruto while he held Sakura's hand. Naruto ignored both of his teammates as he walked through the forest. After 4 minutes silence, Naruto finally spoke up. "Okay, we have to be careful in here, everyone is an enemy," the blonde said, and Sasuke growled. "Don't even think about coming in here and thinking that you are going to take over the team now, you loser," Sasuke said darkly, and Naruto turned to look at him. "I don't care if you're the last Uchiha or not, if you make any move to mess me up I will kill you and hang you from a tree branch by your intestines," Naruto said, letting a little wave of killing intent seep from him. "You don't scare me, loser," Sasuke said as his fist shook from the killing intent. "Then why are you shaking?" Naruto said as he cocked his head to the side. I'm not here to fight you guys, but if you cross me I will not hold back, and Sasuke, I am not as weak as I was before. Naruto said, and Sakura rolled her eyes. You think too highly of yourself, Naruto. She said, and Naruto shrugged. So does your boyfriend. He said, and turned and continued to walk along, hoping that his team would follow. He was surprised when they actually did. So where were you for 6 months? Sasuke asked, trying to pry some information out of Naruto. None of your business. Naruto replied. Sasuke growled when Naruto wouldn't answer his question. They continued to walk in silence through the forest, looking for anyone else that might have a scroll. Naruto looked down at the scroll in his hand and found that it was a heaven scroll, so they needed a earth scroll. Naruto sighed and put the scroll in his pocket and picked up his pace. He hoped that he could find someone that had an earth scroll fast and then get the hell out of the woods. Team 7 continued to walk along the path they were on until they came across a small stream. Okay, I guess we can stop here for now since we haven't found any other teams yet. Naruto said as he sat down and let his scroll roll off onto the ground. We need to keep moving, loser. Other ninja will want to attack us if we are not careful. Sasuke exclaimed, but even Sakura sighed and sat down. Oh come on Sasuke-kun, just a little rest please. See. She whined, and Sasuke sighed and sat down next to her. Okay, so here is our game plan. Naruto said as they got comfortable. If we are attacked, you guys do what you want, I'll take care of myself. The blonde said, and Sasuke smirked. Then why don't you just go and do things yourself right now? The Uchiha asked, and Naruto shrugged. Because I don't feel like it, and besides you guys need my help to survive. Naruto said as he stood to his feet. And why is that? Sasuke asked as he too stood to his feet. Because there are strong opponents out here. Naruto said as he ducked under a barrage of kunao. He quickly turned and threw his own kunao into the bush that the enemy was in, and was happy to hear a grunt when the kunao hit home. A ninja walked out from the bush holding his now bleeding arm in agony. You little shit. The boy groaned as he stared at Naruto angrily. Get out of here before I hurt you. Naruto said, and the ninja laughed. Oh, you're tough. He said, and Naruto shook his head. Suit yourself. The blonde said as he disappeared in a small vortex of water. He reappeared behind the enemy ninja and spun his foot around and caught the boy in the injured arm. He put enough force into the kick to knock the boy to the ground, and he brought his foot around in another circle and then brought it down on the boy's stomach. Uzumaki taijutsu style, and that's not even the royal family style. Naruto said as he jumped back from the boy. Holy shit. Sakura muttered, and Sasuke seethed in anger. Loser. He growled. Naruto landed softly and slid his left foot behind him and his right foot forwards. He held his right hand down towards his left leg and crossed his left hand under it so that his arms made a figure 4. Naruto bent his knees slightly as he waited for the enemy to get up and fight. Lucky shot. The boy wheezed and got to his feet. Naruto ran at him and launched his right hand out and grabbed his neck while his left hand slammed into his gut. As he applied as much force as he could to his left hand, he pulled back with his right hand and flipped the boy up into the air. He then let go of the boy's neck and flipped him with his left arm while he was still in the air. He then brought his right hand around and grabbed the boy's neck and slammed him down into the ground where he lay unconscious. Naruto stood to his feet and looked at his shocked team. That is a basic move. I have mastered the regular and royal Uzumaki taijutsu style and have also mastered the basics of the regular Uzumaki kenjutsu style. Naruto said, and Sasuke took a step back. Lead the way, Naruto. The Uchiha said fearfully. Yeah Naruto, let's go and win. Sakura added in a squeaky voice. Chapter 9, Forest of Death. The trio walked silently as they started on the second day in the forest. After the incident with the enemy ninja, they hadn't been bothered again by another ninja. They were able to make it through the night, and Naruto had immediately taken on the role of the leader. It was mainly due to the fact that he had instilled fear into Sasuke and Sakura when he showed his sudden change in strength. The fear would eventually wear off though, so he wasn't going to let himself get used to it. The three walked in a straight line with Naruto in front, Sakura in the middle, and Sasuke in the back. Naruto had done this because as far as he knew he was the strongest one in the group, so he would take on frontal attacks while Sasuke scanned the area around them with his Sharingan. So far the plan was working well because they had managed to disarm most of the pathetic traps that they found set along their path. Naruto bit his lip as he listened to the unnaturally quiet environment. If there was one thing he learned in the 6 months that he was gone, it was that you should never trust silence. Flashback no Jutsu begin. Naruto walked along the barren field that he was training in, trying to be alert for any surprise attacks. The wind had been blowing wildly and he could hear the crash of the ocean waves as they battled the shore eternally. He slowly drew a kunai jumpy since he didn't know where Zabuza would strike from next. Suddenly the wind slowly stopped blowing and the waves began to settle down until everything was calm. Naruto sighed thankfully since he was able to focus on the task at hand easier. He sat down knowing he would hear if an enemy approached and then he would act. He had been out here for 3 days now and he was tired, so he was going to rest his feet for a while. He set the kunai down beside him and reached into the bag behind him. He pulled out a delicious purple apple that only grew on Whirlpool Country. It had a juicy taste to it and the inside was blue. Naruto opened his mouth to take a bite and before he closed his eyes there was a white flash, and when the flash disappeared he found that he was holding onto half of an apple. He was shaking as his face displayed utter shock. Standing next to him was Zabuza with the other half of his apple in his hand and the man was eating it. "You let your guard down just because it got quiet and you thought you could hear me?" the man said, taking another bite from the apple. Naruto still was shaking as he stared at the halved apple. Flashback no Jutsu end. If there was one thing that Zabuza had always made sure he knew, it was that silence never meant good things. When it became silent, a ninja should be more alert because an enemy would expect you to let your guards down, having the mentality that you would be able to hear any ambushes easier. Naruto slowly drew out a 2 kunai and held them at his sides and the points pointed back at his teammates. Kenjutsu, the art of sword fighting, techniques could be applied to many blade-like weapons and Naruto had taken to using his kunai in tight places where swinging a sword would be rather stupid. Of course the Uzumaki Kenjutsu style wasn't intended for kunai use, so when he fought with it he couldn't use many of the more advanced attacks since the kunai didn't have the reach of his sword. He held the kunai at ready before he spoke very softly and let the wind carry his words back to his team. "Careful, silence means surprise attack," Naruto's words said as they echoed in Sakura's and Sasuke's ears. "Leave it to me, loser," Sasuke muttered and Naruto sighed. He knew it wouldn't be long before Sasuke's ego got too big for the space it was intended for. "You're going to commit an act of suicide from your stupidity," Naruto thought as he turned to the Uchiha. "No," was all he said as he continued to walk. Sasuke grunted behind him angrily, but Naruto didn't really care. The three continued to walk along the forest path hoping to come across an unaware team, hopefully one of the Konoha teams. Of course they didn't come across any of them. Instead they came across a team of weird-looking ninjas from Grass Country. They were all wearing gas masks for some reason and they were breathing really heavy as though they had just ran for an hour. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all stopped and quickly formed a line as they found the 3 other ninja waiting for them in a clearing. Naruto sighed because he knew that he was right about the silence. He tightened his grip on his kunai as he thought about his possible move list. He could do some wicked combos with the small ninja weapons, or he could switch weapons in mid-fight which would throw the enemies off completely. Hee-ha, we finally found the team that has been deactivating our traps," the person that Naruto quickly identified as the leader said, and Naruto groaned. The boy's voice was annoying and Naruto wanted to stick a kunai in his voice box to end the suffering his ears had to endure. "So that was you guys, eh?" Naruto said as he dropped into the Uzumaki Kenjutsu style. He stood sideways looking at the enemy ninja. His knees were bent slightly and his right arm was slightly extended in front of him, and he held his hand sideways so that the kunai pointed to the left. His left hand was back near his leg with the kunai facing forward so that he could thrust it if need be. The style was made so that one could attack with a sword in one hand while being able to use their open hand to use jutsu, or if need be quickly grab their sword and add more force behind their blows, or to put more strength into their defense. All of the Uzumaki styles had one thought in mind, and that was to flow with the speed of battle and use your opponent's attack to your advantage. If they went right, then you should go left and spin around them and kill them, which was how the style went. Naruto had, of course, as he said, only mastered the basics of the regular Uzumaki Kenjutsu style. Unlike the Taijutsu style, Uzumaki Kenjutsu was very complicated and it would take Naruto a couple years to actually master it to its fullest degree. As for the taijutsu style, it was almost natural for his body, so it was much easier to learn, but he hadn't mastered the styles really. He just said that to get his team worked up. Zabuza had him practicing it, but he had only learned all of the moves in the regular style and was about halfway through learning the royal style, which was much more powerful than the regular style. Zabuza told Naruto that if he mastered both royal and regular taijutsu styles, he would teach him the final style of the Uzumaki taijutsu. Naruto took a deep breath and let it out as he closed his eyes and thought about how they should handle this predicament. Flashback no jutsu begin. You see, the benefits of having a three-man cell is that everyone covers everyone's weaknesses. So if you sucked at genjutsu, you could rely on one of your teammates to dispel any genjutsu cast on you or vice versa. Zabuza said, and Naruto nodded as he stored the information in the back of his mind. Yeah, Naruto, let's say you're in a fight and you are only able to handle one enemy, you can rely on your teammates to stop any other potential threats to you. Haku added, and both Zabuza and Naruto nodded. So it really helps if you and your team can work together well, because if you have poor teamwork then you can't get anywhere because there will always be confusion and no order. Zabuza said, and Naruto nodded. Right, need to have fluid work to make things work. The blonde said, and Zabuza nodded and ruffled his hair. Good, now go and do 250 water push-ups, and after that you need to practice your taijutsu for 3 hours. Oh come on! Naruto exclaimed. Do it now, or else you'll be giving me double the amount. Zabuza said warningly. Come on Naruto-kun, I'll work with you. Haku said as she took his hand and the two left the house they were in. Flashback no jutsu end. Naruto hung his head in sadness. Team 7's teamwork was worse than 2 rabid cats and 3 rabid dogs. He turned and looked at Sasuke and Sakura and rolled his eyes as he finally came up with a solution. How good is your teamwork? He asked quietly, and Sasuke answered for him and his girlfriend. Very good, not that you'd understand something of that caliber. The Uchiha said, and Naruto held back an insult. I wanna kill you, he screamed in his head. Fine then, you guys handle the wimps, I will take care of the leader. Naruto said as he settled back into his fighting stance. Always taking the glory, huh? Sasuke spit out, and Naruto shrugged. Hey, this team needs at least one strong person, right? He asked before charging in. It took the team by surprise that the blonde had just rushed at them out of nowhere. Naruto smirked and spun in a circle, bringing both arms out in front of him. He almost sliced the leader's face open had the boy not been able to pull up his own kunao in time. Naruto flipped away and landed back by his team and settled back into his fighting stance. Go! He shouted, and it seemed to get everyone's attention. Sasuke and Sakura grinned at each other and took off running at the enemies while the leader ran at Naruto. The boy jumped over Sasuke's head and landed and continued to run at Naruto with his arm outstretched in order to stab him. Naruto waited in his fighting stance, and as the boy drew closer he closed his eyes and let time slow down around him. Flashback no jutsu begin. This technique right here will help you greatly while using Uzumaki style. Zabuza said as he sat on top of a giant boulder. How? Naruto asked as he scrambled up onto his own. When you meditate and play with your chakra, you become aware of things better. Most of the 7 swordsmen were taught this and used it in battles. Zabuza explained, and Naruto nodded. So I just sit here and meditate? He asked after a while, and Zabuza nodded. Yes, just control your chakra and create shapes within your body or try to enhance your senses with it. Zabuza said, and Naruto nodded. Flashback no jutsu end. Naruto took a deep breath and opened his eyes. He saw time moving slightly slower than usual due to his meditations. The technique went well with his style of fighting because it allowed him to see opening in his opponent's moves and use them to his advantage. The meditation thing wasn't a technique, it was more of a way to become more aware of your surroundings. So technically you could say Naruto just took in every detail faster than he usually could. As the boy lunged at him, Naruto slowly spun right in around the leader and delivered a vicious chop to the back of his shoulder. The boy stumbled from the sudden blow, but otherwise he regained his balance and did a quick spin trying to slash open Naruto's face. Naruto ducked under the blow and came up right behind it and grabbed the boy's arm and stopped it in mid-flight. He swung his left leg around to crush the boy's ribs, but unfortunately he had only gotten a hold of the boy's left arm and not his right. The leader stopped Naruto's kick with his right hand and the two stood there holding back one another's blows. Naruto put more force behind his foot until the leader had no choice but to jump backwards. Naruto watched as the boy landed and ran through some sloppy hand seals, until he landed on the last one and slammed his palms into the ground. "Raiden, Dendu Underi!" the boy exclaimed as a wave of lightning flew across the ground at Naruto. The blonde jumped over the wave and landed lightly on the ground again and took on his fighting stance again. "Is that it?" he asked and the leader smirked. Naruto frowned until suddenly he felt a sharp jolt travel throughout his whole body and he collapsed to his knee breathing heavily. He growled at the leader who was smirking at him. Naruto put two and two together and realized that the boy had just redirected his attack and Naruto had foolishly thought that he had dodged the attack but forgot that Raiden users could actually control the lightning they formed. "Well, I bet you have already found out that your nervous system is messed up," the leader said as he stood to his feet. "But don't be ashamed, you're not the first to fall victim to that technique. It is very common in our village among Raiden users. We simply have lightning mess up the electric pulses your brain sends to your muscles and boom, you no longer can control your own actions," the boy said grinned wildly. "You're good, well somewhat. But you forgot, just because you know a big technique doesn't mean it always works the same way on different people. You only messed up my body functions, so for example," Naruto said and slowly got to his feet. "When I try to move my arms I move my legs, and when I try to blink I actually wiggled my toes. So now that I have figured out basic motor movements then this should be my battle," Naruto said as he took on a sloppy fighting stance. The leader stared at him in shock before bursting out laughing. "Are you serious? Give up your scroll. You can't fight me you idiot, I'll kill you." Naruto took a deep breath and after a while he managed to make a cross seal with his hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 clones appeared by his side and they all stood awkwardly, trying to figure out how to use their muscles even though Naruto had shared that information with them. The leader watched as Naruto slowly went through another set of seals and ended on the serpent seal before grinning at him. "Well you see, if you are going to take my movements then that means I will have to take your vision." Kirigaku no Jutsu. Slowly mist began to surround the area they were all standing in and Naruto saw the leader's shocked expression. Naruto knew that Sasuke could see due to his Sharingan and so he had no need to worry about that fag. He slowly moved his head around as he tried to step out of the mist. After a minute he finally achieved his goal and then he made his way over to a tree. It wouldn't be long until he regained control over his body, thanks to the Kyuubi and his rapid healing the problem should be fixed in no time. He knew that the idiot in the mist was panicking because he could sense it. Zabuza had taught him this jutsu because he could use it almost as good as the man himself. Flashback no jutsu begin. "Yo Naruto come here!" Zabuza shouted and Naruto nodded and ran from his spar with Haku. "Yeah Zabuza-sensei?" he asked and Zabuza cracked his knuckles. "I'm going to teach you your third jutsu today," the man said and Naruto pumped his fist in excitement. "Alright, what will it be? Another cool water technique or some lame thing?" Naruto trailed off but Zabuza shook his head. "Nope, I'm going to teach you the mist technique actually," Zabuza said and Naruto's eyes widened. He had wanted to learn the technique for a long time. "Seriously, but why?" Naruto asked and Zabuza chuckled. "Because you have the potential to use it to extreme capabilities," Zabuza said and continued on explaining his reasoning. "With the technique you know that you blind people well since the mist is really your chakra you can easily find out where people are in the mist and you can somewhat see clearly. Now if you were to use a technique like Kage Bunshin with this attack," Zabuza said and allowed Naruto to try and think of the rest. "I'll be able to strike from almost any area and the enemy would never know. Or I could just send in shadow clones and stay safely outside the mist," Naruto said happily and Zabuza nodded. "Now you got it. But here are the hand seals you need to use." Zabuza aid starting to teach Naruto the technique. Flashback no jutsu end. Naruto leaned against the tree while thinking wildly. Should he go all out now send his shadow clones in to finish the job? Or should he just allow his control to return and do the dirty work himself? He sighed and felt most of his control finally returning to himself. He clenched his hands together and grinned. He was back in control. He took a step forward and found that his leg listened to him again. He made a quick hand seal and dismissed the mist. As it faded, he saw the leader standing in the center of the clearing, panting slightly. Naruto cocked his head at him and grinned. "Oh, your ass is mine now," Naruto said as he slowly drew out his sword. "Kukyuku, now we wouldn't want that now, would we, Uzumaki?" A cold voice suddenly said from up in a tree. "What the?" Naruto muttered and gasped as a snake erupted from the ground, swallowing the boy he had been fighting. The snake closed its mouth and disappeared in a cloud of smoke, taking the boy with him. "Oh, my god," Naruto thought, and he slowly turned to where the voice had come from. "Please, I don't want to waste any time on you, I have someone else I want," a snake-like man suddenly said from behind him, and Naruto turned and saw a face that he recognized from being with Zabuza. "Orochimaru, I should have guessed you would be here," Naruto muttered as he flipped away from the snake man and held his sword in the Kenjutsu position. It was the same as the one he used with his kunao, only his left hand was empty now. "Oh, please, as much as I want to kill you because of our last encounter, I really do have more important matters to attend to," Orochimaru said, letting his tongue roll out. Naruto shuddered at the disgusting thing and ran at Orochimaru. "I asked please," Orochimaru said as a snake appeared in front of Naruto as he ran. The blonde wasn't able to slow himself down and ran right into the gaping maw of the snake that clamped its mouth shut as soon as he was in it. "Damn it!" Naruto cursed as he was surrounded in darkness. He clenched his fist and pushed his sword against the snake's insides, but found he couldn't put enough force behind cut and gave up. He managed to somehow get the blade back in its sheath before he stood completely still. He had promised Zabuza that he would only use the fifth jutsu he had taught him when Nisakuri. Naruto thought that this would qualify as Nisakuri. He began to run through a sequence of seals until he landed on the last one and shouted, "Suten, Daibakufu no Jutsu." The water and moisture inside of the snake began to slowly pull towards Naruto as it created a large ball of spinning water around him. His clothes were soaked as the water spun faster and faster. Soon the water sphere began to enlarge and expand. On the outside of the snake one would see that it was getting slightly bigger. Suddenly the snake got really big, and instead of being long and skinny it blew up like a balloon and began to shake. The snake's eyes opened wide in horror as suddenly it blew apart in every direction, sending red and green water splashing across all of the exposed surfaces around the group of ninjas. Naruto stood panting in a small crater. His clothes were sticking to him and his hair had a steady stream running from it. "Damn snake," he cursed and looked up and found a sight that shocked him beyond belief. Orochimaru had a sword in his hand, and the sword was rammed into Sasuke's chest, and Orochimaru was elevating him in the air in front of him. Sasuke struggled on the end of the blade and Naruto stared on with shock. Chapter 10, Meeting Your Match. Naruto sat in disbelief as Orochimaru held body of the person he hated the most in front of him. Naruto watched in shock as Sasuke continued to struggle for a while and Sakura screamed in horror. How had this happened? He was in the snake 1 second and then the next he had stumbled across this scene, but something was not right at all. Naruto looked around after snapping out of it and took a step forward and found that no one paid attention to his movements. "They are so focused on the fact that they don't even notice me," he thought in his head and clenched his fist in anger. "Wait," he muttered as he looked closer. He found that something seriously was out of line, and it was that he felt a foreign chakra in his body. "Damn it, he got me with genjutsu right before I went into the snake, or maybe it was before then." He cursed and brought his hand up with his first 2 fingers pointing up. "Kai release!" he yelled, and the world around him shattered as he came back to reality. Well, it seems that you're back," Orochimaru said, flicking his tongue at Naruto. Naruto looked around and found a battered and bruised Sasuke leaning against a tree with an unconscious Sakura behind him. Naruto clenched his fist together again as he swore silently. How was he going to fight this man? Orochimaru was one of the legendary Sunin in Konoha. He was too strong for Naruto to beat, no matter how strong he had gotten, and it had been proved last time they had met. Of course, back then neither knew each other and he wasn't killed in the battle for one simple fact: Haku and Zabuza had been there with him, and together they had managed to hold Orochimaru off, just barely though. Naruto had delivered a rather dirty attack and had crippled the man long enough for Haku to get them out of there. So not only was he outmatched as he was then, he also had one more question left in mind. Why was Orochimaru in a Chunin exam? What are you doing here? Naruto demanded as he took on a fighting stance. Oh, you know. Orochimaru said and flicked his tongue out. Just dropping by. He said and swung his head around, letting his tongue whip out at Naruto. The blonde cursed and jumped up into the air only for the tongue to change direction and swing up and grab him around the torso. Naruto tried to break free but Orochimaru acted quickly. He jerked his tongue down and Naruto was sent hurtling into the ground below him. He landed with a loud boom and when the dust cleared he was standing weakly in the crater. He wiped away a line of blood that was running down his lip and glared at the snake Sunin. There was no way anyone in the forest could beat this bastard. Son of a bitch. Naruto yelled as he made a hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 9 clones appeared next to Naruto and he and the clones ran at Orochimaru. The snake man grinned evilly as he drew out a single kunai and started to destroy clones left and right. Soon Naruto was left panting and bloody 10 feet away from the man. He spit out a glob of blood and looked over at Sasuke who was leaning against the tree heavily holding his right arm. What the hell have you been doing these last 6 months? Don't you know anything that could help? Naruto shouted and Sasuke shook his head. I've tried everything you loser, while you were caught by the snake and then the genjutsu I was fighting with all of my strength. Sasuke wheezed and Naruto shook his head at Kakashi's laziness. Only he wouldn't see it fit to teach his team any good moves or any ninjutsu. Well, we can't take this sick bastard, we're too weak. Naruto muttered as Orochimaru laughed wildly. Naruto-kun, just because you hate my sadistic nature doesn't mean you have to enforce your beliefs on poor Sasuke. Orochimaru said as he flicked his tongue again. I hope you burn in hell. Naruto muttered as he settled into the Uzumaki regular taijutsu stance. From here on out when I am talking about the regular Uzumaki taijutsu style I'll just say U.R.T and for the royal family one I'll say RU. Naruto took a deep breath and Orochimaru shook his head. Your little team isn't here to help you this time, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru taunted and Naruto growled at the man. I don't need them to beat your ass. Naruto said as he took off running towards Orochimaru. He went on the offensive and threw a roundhouse kick at the man's face. Orochimaru ducked under the blow and launched his tongue out at Naruto. Naruto sidestepped it and grabbed the nasty thing. He slammed it down on the ground and stomped on it with as much force as he could muster. Orochimaru yelled at the sudden pain lancing through his weakest body part. Naruto smeared his foot around on the tongue before jumping at the snake man and throwing his right fist around to break his neck. Orochimaru, who was still retracting his injured tongue, ducked under the blow but Naruto brought his left knee around and managed to drive it into Orochimaru's exposed shoulder. The snake man was sent skidding back a few inches but otherwise seemed unharmed. Naruto stood panting heavily and clenched his fist again to keep the blood moving to them. He charged at Orochimaru again but this time the man went on to the offensive. Orochimaru launched his arm straight out so that his hand was like a dagger and was aimed right at Naruto's face. Naruto was able to spin out of the way but Orochimaru quickly changed the direction of his hand and it crashed into Naruto's skull sending him rolling to his left. As he came to a stop the blonde slowly got to his feet and coughed up some blood. He was at a serious disadvantage right now and he knew it. Sasuke and Sakura were again no help to him since they were already injured and probably too scared to join in. You can't beat me by yourself, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru said sadistically as he launched himself at Naruto again. Said blonde ran at the man and both met with a crash. Naruto held Orochimaru's dagger hand in one of his hands while Orochimaru held his fist with his free hand. Naruto felt Orochimaru starting to apply pressure to his fist so he jerked back some and landed heavily and skidded. He was breathing heavily and he knew that he wouldn't last much longer, not at the rate he was going. Naruto sighed as he realized that the battle was lost. He coughed and reached into his pocket drawing out the heaven scroll he was carrying. Take it and leave. He said throwing the scroll at Orochimaru who caught it with one hand. Thanks, but that's not what I really wanted. Orochimaru said with a wide grin. Slowly his gaze shifted over to Sasuke who was glaring at him with onyx eyes. Well Sasuke, it seems that you don't want to join me yet so I'll leave you with this little present. Orochimaru said and suddenly his neck stretched out and his head flew at a surprised and frozen Sasuke. Orochimaru bit down on the left side of Sasuke's neck and when he released the boy a black mark appeared. I was a black circle with a triangle in the middle. In the areas between the triangle and the circle were 3 tomes. Sasuke gasped and fell to the ground in pain before slipping away into unconscious. "What did you do?" Naruto screamed when he saw Sasuke fall to the ground. "I merely gave him a mean to be the most powerful," Orochimaru said as he walked towards a tree and stepped into it. "We will meet again, Uzumaki," Orochimaru said before disappearing into the tree. Naruto cursed and he looked up to heaven. "Why, Kami, what have I done?" he asked. Naruto stood where he stood for a while staring at Sasuke and Sakura's unmoving bodies. He was too tired to really carry them too far, but he knew he should be able to get them to a different location so they were safe. Naruto limped over to the 2 teens and grabbed one of their legs and started to use the last of his strength to drag them away. He should have just let them sit there, but that wouldn't be very acceptable. If his whole team was killed in the exams, the council would have him banished for not protecting the precious prodigy. Naruto rolled his eyes in disgust and continued walking, and after a while he stopped. His cloak was starting to bug him since it was still slightly wet and was also torn on numerous places. He had arrived at a small clearing that was next to a large tree, and to the right was a long stream that was about 3 feet deep. He laid Sasuke and Sakura against the tree and began to pull his sword and scroll off. After he did so, he slowly pulled his cloak from his aching body. Even with Kyuubi's accelerated healing, he was still sore. Naruto threw the cloak away since it was torn beyond repair, and he also had a few others sealed away. He stretched out his cramped muscles before pulling his bloody shirt from his body and inspected his chest. Dried blood caked it now, and the wounds that were the source of the bleeding had already healed and were now just purplish bruises. He winced as he poked one and sighed heavily. He pulled off his pants to reveal a pair of shorts that he wore underneath the pants in case of times like these. He untied the headband from his pants and emptied the pockets. He walked over to the stream, and before he went in, he dropped the clothes to the ground and pulled off his umbu-styled gloves and threw them next to his headband. He then proceeded to slowly lower himself into the stream with his clothes in hand. Naruto let out a sigh of relief as the cold water washed over his body, numbing the pain he was feeling. He set his pants on the ledge and began to scrub his shirt off under the water. After he did this for a while, he worked on his pants, which were a bit harder to get since they were somewhat waterproof. After he finished washing his clothes, he set them on the ledge and then submerged himself in the water. Yeah, it wasn't a good time to be relaxing, but he had just fought with one of the strongest ninja known to Konoha, hell, one of the strongest ninja known to the world. He completely went under and felt the cold water washing over his face and through his hair. After a while he began to scrub his hair and wash off his body. When he finished, he hauled himself out of the stream and got to his feet and jumped up and down a couple times to get rid of the numbness. He ran his hands over his hair and body, and soon all of the water that had clung to him was floating in a spherical form. He played with the water ball for a while, spinning it on his finger, making it hover, and making different intricate patterns with it. Zabuza had taught him the water users always practiced when they could, and the man had showed Naruto how to practice properly. Naruto practiced whenever he got wet since he usually didn't dry off, and this was a perfect way to get the water off. Naruto finally cocked his hand back and threw the water sphere up into the air and watched as it blew apart and rained into the stream. He walked over to his clothes and slowly pulled the water from them and let it splash back into the stream. When he was done, he pulled his shirt back on along with his pants. He grabbed his gloves and pulled them on and flexed his fingers to loosen the cloth up some. He grabbed his headband and tied it back onto the right belt loop and sauntered over to his teammates who were still knocked out. Naruto stopped in front of them and held his head in frustration. If they were to be attacked now, he might not be able to handle all of the competition since he was still sore. Naruto crouched down in front of Sasuke and eyed the mark on his neck carefully. It looked like some kind of seal that he never had seen before. Naruto touched the mark, and before his finger made contact with it, red chakra shot from his finger and purple chakra shot from the mark. Both collided, and Naruto jerked his hand back at the sudden reaction between chakras. He eyed the mark warily before standing to his feet. He would have to let someone know about this, but when would he do so? Naruto grabbed his head in anger and stormed off from the teams and sat by the stream. He eyed the water and slowly moved his eyes in circles and made the water create small whirlpools. Zabuza had also showed Naruto this little technique. Flashback no jutsu begin. So what is this supposed to do? Naruto asked as he traced little whirlpools in the pond before him. It helps improve your control over your chakra, concentration, and also control over the water element. Zabuza said as he held his hand out and the center of the pond began to spin faster and faster until a raging whirlpool was in it. When you have good control you can create many whirlpools or giant ones like this. Zabuza explained and Naruto nodded. So when can I learn to do that? Naruto asked in awe. When you learn to bend water to your will. Zabuza said with a sweat drop. Flashback no jutsu end. Naruto could make a grand total of 6 whirlpools now and they were all large enough to spin a human around, and if he focused on making only one he could make one that was about 10 feet in diameter. It wasn't much compared to Zabuza, or for that matter former residents of Whirlpool Country. Naruto sighed as he waved his hand over the part of the stream he was messing with. The whirlpools stopped spinning and came to a stop, sending ripples across the entire surface. Naruto stood to his feet and walked over to a dead tree and started pulling branches off of it. Hopefully he would be able to build a fire by the time night fell, since Sasuke and Sakura weren't up to doing anything. After about 10 minutes Naruto had a decent-sized amount of sticks and twigs and proceeded to pick up logs that were scattered across the ground. After he piled up some sticks and a couple logs he stared at the pile of wood for a little bit. It wouldn't be wise to have a large fire right now in the middle of the day because everyone could see the smoke while at night they could see the light. Naruto scratched his head trying to figure out what he should do. Sasuke. Naruto heard Sakura's weak voice behind him and he slowly turned and found her sitting up. She was looking at Naruto but her eyes really said, "Where the hell is Sasuke?" "He's fine, kind of. Orochimaru kicked his ass," Naruto said pointing at the boy who was on the other side of the tree she was near. "Why didn't you protect him?" Sakura almost screamed but Naruto stood to his feet and his face was contorted in rage immediately. "Why didn't I?" He screamed at her and she cringed from the killing intent he allowed himself to leak. "Why didn't you?" He screamed at her. Only Sakura would start complaining about the Uchiha and not even take the time to thank the person who had actually saved both of their asses. Naruto glared at her, the rage in his eyes was visible. Sakura stared at the ground in shame. She had ridiculed the person that she knew had most likely saved her and Sasuke from certain death. Naruto shook his head in disgust and pointed at the fire. "Get it started, you need to do something for this team," he said and walked away into the forest. "Where are you going?" Sakura exclaimed, worried about what would happen if they were attacked. "Well, since I couldn't take on Orochimaru by myself I had to give the scroll to him so he'd back off. So I'm going to go and get some scrolls for us, how's that sound?" Naruto said angrily as he disappeared from view and into the woods. "What was that?" Zaku exclaimed as he brought his hands up in front of him to use his sound projection waves. "I didn't hear anything," Karen muttered as she continued to play with her hair. "You're hearing stuff," Gufuru muttered as he adjusted his heavy jacket. They had just beaten the last team they had to and got their Earth Scroll. They were getting ready to complete the mission the Orochimaru assigned to them earlier. Find Uzumaki Naruto and kill him no matter what the cost. So at the moment they were getting ready to depart from the team they had beaten so they could fulfill the request from their superior. The team they had just beaten was a weak one. They had put up somewhat of a fight but they were no match for them still. There was a blonde girl, a black-haired boy, and some fat kid. Gufuru sighed as he kicked the fat kid's gut again making him groan. "Stop it!" Chuji mumbled as he burped out loud and falling unconscious. "Chuji! Shikimaru!" Ino exclaimed weakly as she pulled herself into a sitting position against a tree and had tears coming down her face because of her pain. "Shut up you annoying wimps!" Zaku yelled and kicked Ino in the side. Ino whimpered and held her side in pain. Zaku brought his fist back to finish her off when suddenly a vortex of water appeared in front of him and a bored-looking Naruto stared at him blankly. "Who the hell are you?" Zaku exclaimed but Gufuru immediately knew who it was. "The person who is going to kick your ass," Naruto muttered and swung his leg around in a roundhouse kick. Before his foot hit Zaku's head the other boy quickly ducked and back-flipped away from Naruto landing near Karen and Gufuru. "So who is this punk?" Zaku asked and Gufuru grunted. "Our mission," the other boy said and Zaku's eyes widened. "This idiot is our target, no way," Zaku exclaimed and looked at Naruto who was standing in front of Ino. Let me handle him, Zuko said and ran at Naruto. Naruto watched him as he got near, and when the boy swung his fist at Naruto, the blonde ducked under the punch and brought his foot straight up so that it plowed into Zuko's chin. The boy was sent flying up and backward and crashed onto the ground next to Gufuru. Naruto stared at the three blankly while he slowly settled back into his fighting stance. He drew out a kunai and waited for the three to attack him. We have orders from Orochimaru to kill you, Uzumaki Naruto, Gufuru said as he pulled his arms from his coat. When they hugged down at his side, Naruto could see metal gauntlets with holes on both sides of his arms. Naruto then looked over at the girl in the group and saw nothing impressive about her, so he moved on to look at Zuko. The boy had brown spiky hair, and when he stood he held his palms facing up towards Naruto. Naruto could see a hole in each of the boy's hands and he couldn't deduce what they were for. Naruto finally sighed and turned his back to the three and looked down at Ino, who gasped when she saw who was standing in front of her. Naruto reached out an arm, and when he did, Ino saw his tattoo shimmer again and she turned pink. You okay? He asked, and she nodded weakly but winced, giving away how she really felt. Why yeah, but Chuji and Shikamaru are hurt a lot worse than me, she muttered, and Naruto nodded, looking over at his two semi-friends from the academy. I'll take care of this small problem real quick, he whispered to her and turned back around. Well, usually I would have ended this much quicker, but since you already know about how strong Orochimaru is and you undoubtedly know about our run, and then you know I am somewhat injured, so I'll try to finish this to the best of my abilities, Naruto said as he slowly unsheathed his sword and fell into his Kenjutsu stance. Oh, you're cocky, I should dash, Zuko started to say but was cut off when he felt the cold bite of Naruto's blade slice his arm up. When he looked, he saw that there were shallow yet painful X marks going up his entire right arm. Blood was already pouring down the arm now, and when Zuko looked up he found Naruto standing in front of him again, only 5 feet away. You were saying? Naruto said, raising an eyebrow at the overconfident boy. Of course Zabuza had Naruto work on his speed. Naruto was already incredibly fast, and Zabuza said that when he was done with his training he would be able to run at the same speed one could Shunshin. How did you? Zuko muttered as he let his arm fall limply to his side. Do this, Naruto said as he took off running at Zuko. The boy brought out a kunai and blocked Naruto's sword, but the blade pressed down and Zuko had to jump back in order to dodge the swing that broke through his defense. Naruto ran at Zuko again and spun in a circle, swinging his sword at the boy's ribs in order to make a shallow cut that would prohibit movement. Zuko was able to bring his kunai up in time to defend himself though, and he grunted as he held back Naruto's attack. Naruto sighed and jumped backwards and slid to a stop. He found that the two other teammates were simply watching the fight carefully, interested in the blonde's talent. Naruto shook his head and turned back to Zuko to see him standing sideways and holding his good arm straight out in front of him. Naruto took a step forward when suddenly the air around Zuko's hand compressed and then launched at Naruto. The blonde was suddenly sent flying backwards into the tree, not knowing what had just hit him. What the hell? He muttered as he pulled himself from the crater. It's sound and air placement technique, Zuko said as he looked at Naruto. I'll give it to you, you messed my good arm up, but I can still fight with this arm, Zuko said, and Naruto nodded. Well, it seems that you are stronger than I thought, the blonde said as he took his fighting stance. But I'm stronger, I mean, you should see this jutsu that I am about to use. Naruto ran at Zuko, and before he was hit by another one of Zuko's sound replacement techniques he did a water shunshin and reappeared behind the boy. Zuko turned and thrusted his arm out, but Naruto's sword tip was inside of the hole in his palm. Zuko was terrified now. He felt the tip sitting in his hole, but what could he do? One move and Naruto could shove his sword through his entire arm. I can still kill you from right here, Zuko said, and Naruto shook his head. No, you're right where I want you actually, Naruto said, and made 5 one-handed seals. Suten, Mizu Funsha Kazui. His blade suddenly absorbed all of the surrounding moisture in the air and enveloped his sword. Naruto chuckled darkly as he flicked his wrist and the water shot forward in a straight and thin line. Everyone froze as a straight stream of water shot from Zuko's left shoulder. Naruto jumped back and the water dissipated and Zuko screamed in agony. Naruto had the water make a perfect tunnel-like wound through his entire arm, rendering it useless. Zuko couldn't even move it because Naruto had managed to destroy the nerve that controlled his muscle movement, and even if Naruto had missed the nerve he also made the water destroy the joint in Zuko's arm. Zuko was on his knees holding his left arm with his right injured one. Naruto had rendered both arms useless to a certain degree. Zuko definitely couldn't use his left arm anymore, but he could still use the right one and feel just a bit of pain. Zuko must have thought about this because he held his arm up and pointed it at Naruto in anger. "I'm going to finish this fight!" Zuko screamed. Naruto shook his head and ran at Zuko, jumping over the sound and air wave. He landed right in front of Zuko and the boy's eyes widened as Naruto brought his foot down really hard. Zuko screamed as Naruto crushed the metal tube that ran through his arm. The metal was pinched together about halfway into his arm, and if Zuko tried to use his arm he would only manage to blow his arm off. "I win," Naruto said and sheathed his sword and looked over at the remaining two teammates. "I'll hurt you guys a lot worse if you don't hand over your scrolls." Gufaro chuckled as he brought his hands up in front of his face and clenched his fists. "Not going to happen, boy," he said and swung his arms out so that they made a large arc. Naruto saw the air that was coming towards him rippling and he knew he had to dodge the attack. He tried to jump up but was still caught by the attack. He felt his ears start ringing loudly and he hit the ground groaning in pain. Blood was trickling down from his ears as he stood shakingly to his feet. Before he came here he hadn't fully rested and his fight with Zuko had taken a lot out of him. As he stared Gufaro down he tried to come up with a strategy. He racked his mind for ideas but had nothing, he was just too tired. Naruto slowly brought his hands up in front of him prepared to finish the fight when he heard a cold voice behind him. It seems as though you're in a pickle." Naruto turned and saw someone that he recognized standing there. More precisely, he saw three people standing there and they were all looking at him with an amused look. "Well, this may not be good," Naruto thought as he became surrounded by more enemies. Check the description for the links to the author.